The massive alien ship hung in space above Earth like a dark cloud. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The ship's smooth black surface reflected no light, making it look like a hole cut out of the stars themselves. Inside the United Space Command headquarters in Geneva, Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the viewscreen. She had been waiting for this moment for 3 months. Ever since their deep space monitors had picked up the first alien signals, she knew this day would come. "They're requesting communication, Admiral," said Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. His voice was steady, but Sarah could see the sweat on his forehead. "Put them through," Sarah ordered. She straightened her uniform and prepared to meet humanity's first official alien contact. The screen flickered and showed a creature that looked nothing like the movies had predicted. Ambassador Zethkri of the Hegemony stood nearly 8 feet tall. His skin was pale blue and seemed to shimmer in the light. 4 arms extended from his torso, each ending in hands with too many fingers. But it was his eyes that caught Sarah's attention. They were completely black, like looking into deep space. "Greetings, primitive beings of the third planet," Zethkri spoke in perfect English. His voice was cold and mechanical. "I am Ambassador Zethkri, representative of the Galactic Council. We have come to deliver an important message to your species." Sarah kept her face calm. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. I am Admiral Sarah Chen, Commander of United Space Command. We're honored by your visit." The alien's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "Honor is not the correct emotion. You should feel gratitude. The Galactic Council has decided to offer your species membership in our great alliance." "That sounds wonderful," Sarah replied carefully. "What would membership involve?" Zethkri's mouth curved into what might have been a smile, but it looked more like a threat. "The terms are simple and non-negotiable. First, you will submit to Council authority in all matters of space travel and planetary defense. Second, you will accept our guidance in technological development. We will decide what knowledge you are ready to receive. Third, you will provide tribute to the Council in the form of rare earth minerals, genetic samples, and a portion of your population for study." The room fell silent. Sarah felt her jaw clench, but she kept her voice level. "And if we decline this generous offer?" "Decline?" Zethkri seemed genuinely confused by the word. "Your species has no choice in this matter. However, if you foolishly resist, the Council will implement corrective measures. Your military installations will be destroyed. Your leaders will be removed. Your population will be reduced to manageable levels. This is how we bring peace to the galaxy." Behind Sarah, she heard someone's chair creak as they shifted. Dr. James Wu, her chief science advisor, was taking notes on his tablet. His fingers moved quickly across the screen. "I see," Sarah said slowly. "This is certainly a significant decision for our species. Would the Council be willing to give us time to consider your offer?" Zethkri's black eyes narrowed. "Time? What use is time to a primitive species? You have no choice but to accept." "Even so," Sarah continued politely, "such an important decision deserves careful thought. Perhaps 30 days to discuss among our people?" The alien was quiet for a long moment. Sarah could see him thinking. Finally, he spoke again. "Very well. The Council finds your request amusing. You may have 30 of your planetary rotations to consider our generous offer. But understand this, Admiral Chen. This delay changes nothing. You will submit to the Council's authority, or you will face the consequences." "We understand completely," Sarah replied. "Thank you for your patience." Zethkri's image vanished from the screen. The room stayed quiet for several seconds. "Well," Dr. Wu said finally, "that went better than expected." Sarah turned to look at him. "Better? They just threatened to wipe out most of humanity." "Yes, but they gave us 30 days, Wu smiled. 30 days is more than enough time." "Enough time for what?" Lieutenant Torres asked. Wu's smile grew wider. "To show them why threatening Earth was the biggest mistake the Galactic Council has ever made." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Wu had been working on classified projects for the past 6 months. Projects that officially didn't exist. "James, what exactly have you been building in those underground labs?" "Insurance, Admiral. The kind of insurance that makes sure humanity survives what's coming." Over the next few hours, Sarah learned things that changed everything she thought she knew about Earth's defenses. Wu's team had been monitoring alien communications for months before first contact. They had detected scout ships, intercepted data transmissions, and even recovered crashed alien technology from 3 different incidents. "The Council thinks we're primitives, Because we haven't developed faster-than-light travel yet, Wu explained as they walked through his secret laboratory beneath the Swiss mountains. But they're wrong about something important. Technology isn't everything. Sarah looked around the lab. Dozens of scientists worked at stations filled with equipment she didn't recognize. In the center of the room sat a strange device that looked like a mix of alien technology and human engineering. "What is that?" she asked. "A communication interceptor," Wu replied. "We've been listening to their conversations for weeks. The Council has done this before, Admiral. Many times. They find a new species, make the same offer, and when that species refuses, they demonstrate their power by destroying a few cities. Most species surrender immediately after that. Most species? According to their own records, they've never encountered a species that fought back effectively. The Council members have been at peace for so long that they've forgotten how to really fight a war." Sarah began to understand. "But we haven't forgotten." "Exactly. Humans have been at war with each other for thousands of years. We've learned things about combat, strategy, and survival that these aliens never had to learn. They think superior technology automatically means victory." Wu led her to another section of the lab where engineers were working on what looked like weapons. But these weren't the energy weapons she expected to see. Instead, they looked surprisingly simple. "Kinetic weapons?" Sarah asked. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways," Wu explained. "Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons and missiles. But a solid tungsten rod moving at 90% of light speed, their shields can't handle that kind of impact." Sarah felt a cold smile form on her lips. "How many of these weapons do we have? By the time their deadline arrives?" "Enough." That night, Sarah stood on the observation deck of the space station orbiting Earth. She could see the alien ship in the distance, its dark hull reflecting the light of Earth's cities. The aliens thought they were looking down at a helpless world full of primitives. They had no idea that those primitives had spent their entire existence learning how to fight. They didn't know that humans had turned warfare into an art form. Most importantly, they couldn't imagine that the species they were threatening had already decided to fight back. Sarah opened a communication channel to Dr. Wu's lab. "James, are you certain we can do this?" "Admiral, the Council made one critical error in their calculations." "What's that?" "They assumed that because we're young, we must be weak. They forgot that young species are also the most dangerous. We have nothing to lose and everything to prove." Sarah looked up at the alien ship one more time. In 29 days, Ambassador Zethkri would return for Earth's answer. She already knew what that answer would be. Let's show them what humanity is really capable of. The next morning, Earth looked like a world preparing for war. Construction ships moved around the planet like busy ants, building what appeared to be defensive platforms. Massive metal structures grew in orbit, bristling with what looked like weapons and shield generators. Ambassador Zethkri watched from his ship with satisfaction. The humans were doing exactly what he expected. They were building defenses that might impress other primitive species, but would crumble under Council firepower in minutes. "Pathetic," he said to his aide, Commander Vexthal. "Look at their crude attempts at military construction. Do they really think those simple platforms can stop a Council fleet?" Commander Vexthal studied the readouts on his screen. "The energy signatures are weak, Ambassador. Their most powerful weapons seem to be basic fusion missiles. Our shields could absorb their entire arsenal without significant damage." What neither alien realized was that Dr. Wu's team was listening to every word. The communication interceptor hidden in Earth's first satellite was recording all Council transmissions. In his underground laboratory, Wu smiled as he heard their conversation. "They're taking the bait perfectly," he told Admiral Chen over a secure channel. "They think our orbital platforms are our main defense." Sarah was standing in the secret command center that Wu's team had built inside Cheyenne Mountain. Banks of monitors showed the real picture of Earth's defenses. The orbital platforms were just for show. The real weapons were hidden where the aliens would never think to look. "How many kinetic launchers are operational?" Sarah asked. 47 platforms scattered throughout the asteroid belt," Wu replied. "Each one has been accelerating tungsten rods for the past 3 weeks. When those projectiles reach target velocity, they'll hit harder than nuclear weapons." Sarah nodded and turned to Colonel Martinez, her military advisor. "What about the ship construction?" "Proceeding ahead of schedule," Martinez reported. "The asteroid mining stations have been converted into hidden shipyards. We'll have 60 stealth fighters ready by the deadline." The plan was simple but effective. While the aliens watched Earth's obvious preparations, Humanity's real military buildup was happening in the outer solar system. Every asteroid mining station, every deep space research facility, every piece of equipment that had been sent beyond Mars was now part of Earth's hidden defense network. Dr. Wu's breakthrough had come from studying the recovered alien technology. The Council ships used active scanning systems that looked for specific energy signatures, but human stealth technology worked differently. Instead of trying to fool alien sensors with energy shields, Wu's team had developed ships that produced almost no energy signature at all. "It's like the difference between hiding in a spotlight and hiding in a shadow," Wu explained to the engineering team. "Their sensors are designed to see through alien cloaking technology, but our ships aren't cloaked. They're just very, very quiet." The stealth fighters looked nothing like traditional human spacecraft. They were built from materials that absorbed sensor waves instead of reflecting them. Their engines used cold fusion reactors that produced minimal heat signatures. Most importantly, they could drift through space for weeks without being detected. Meanwhile, the Council was making their own preparations. Zethkri had called for a standard peacekeeping force to deal with Earth's expected resistance. 3 heavy cruisers, 12 escort ships, and 1 dreadnought, more than enough firepower to destroy Earth's defenses and demonstrate Council authority. "The humans will surrender after we destroy their capital cities," Zethkri told the fleet commander. "Standard procedure. Show overwhelming force, eliminate their leadership, and the population will submit." Fleet Commander Karthek nodded agreement. "How many casualties should we expect, Ambassador?" "None," Zethkri replied confidently. "Human weapons cannot penetrate our shields. This will be a simple demonstration." But as the days passed, some Council observers began to notice strange things about human behavior. Unlike other species they had conquered, humans weren't trying to negotiate. There were no desperate attempts to improve the Council's offer, no pleas for mercy or requests for better terms. Instead, Earth's government had gone completely silent. Admiral Chen issued only one public statement. "Earth appreciates the Council's offer and is giving it the consideration it deserves." This worried Commander Vexthul. "Ambassador, something feels wrong about their response. Every other species has either surrendered immediately or tried to bargain for better terms. The humans are acting like they have other options." Zethkri dismissed the concern. What other options could a primitive species possibly have? They have no allies, no advanced technology, and no experience with galactic warfare. Their silence means they're trying to decide which form of surrender will save the most lives. The reality was very different. Earth's silence came from the fact that every government leader, military commander, and scientist was working around the clock on the greatest military mobilization in human history. In hidden facilities across the globe, weapons factories ran 24 hours a day. The tungsten rods being launched toward the asteroid belt weren't just ammunition. They were messages. Each rod carried compressed data files containing everything humanity had learned about Council technology, tactics, and weaknesses. Dr. Wu had made another crucial discovery. The Council wasn't actually united. The 12 member species worked together, but each had their own military traditions, technological specialties, and strategic preferences. More importantly, they had never fought as a coordinated force against a determined enemy. They're used to dealing with individual planetary rebellions, Wu explained during a strategy meeting, small uprisings that can be crushed by superior firepower. They've never faced an enemy that could threaten multiple Council worlds simultaneously. Sarah studied the intelligence reports that Wu's team had compiled. "You're saying we should attack all of them at once?" "I'm saying we should make them realize that humanity is not a regional problem. We're a species-level threat. Once they understand that, they'll have to decide whether destroying Earth is worth the cost of a real war." As the deadline approached, Earth's preparations entered their final phase. The orbital platforms were completed and armed with impressive-looking weapons that would provide a spectacular light show when the Council fleet arrived. Underground bunkers were stocked with supplies for a long siege. Military units took positions around major cities. To any observer, Earth looked like a world preparing for a desperate last stand. The aliens saw exactly what they expected to see. A primitive species getting ready to die bravely but uselessly. They had no idea that humanity had been studying war for thousands of years. They didn't know that humans had learned to turn apparent weakness into strength, to make enemies underestimate them, and to strike from directions that seemed impossible. Most importantly, The Council had made the same mistake that Earth's enemies had made throughout history. They had mistaken human restraint for human inability. On the final day before the deadline, Admiral Chen sent one last message to Ambassador Zethkri. It was short and polite. The people of Earth have carefully considered the Council's generous offer. We appreciate your patience during our deliberations. However, we must respectfully decline your terms. Earth chooses to remain independent. We hope this decision will not affect future diplomatic relations between our species. Zethkri read the message with disbelief. Then he began to laugh. Diplomatic relations? They think they can negotiate with the Galactic Council? Tomorrow they will learn what happens to species that refuse our guidance. But in her hidden command center, Sarah Chen was not thinking about tomorrow. She was thinking about what would happen after tomorrow, when the Council learned that they had just declared war on the most dangerous species in the galaxy. All stations. This is Admiral Chen, she broadcast to the hidden fleet. Operation Homecoming begins in 18 hours. Show them what Earth's children can do. The Council fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 16 ships arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of Sol. Fleet Commander Karthek felt satisfaction as he observed Earth's pitiful defenses through his command ship's sensors. 23 orbital platforms, reported his tactical officer. Energy readings suggest basic fusion weapons and primitive shield generators. Estimated time to complete destruction, 14 minutes. Karthek nodded. Begin standard approach. Destroy the outer platforms first, then move toward the planet. Make sure the humans see their defenses fall one by one. Fear makes surrender more likely. The Council dreadnought Inevitable Justice led the formation toward Earth. Behind it, 3 heavy cruisers prepared their main batteries. The escort ships spread out in a protective screen, ready to deal with any desperate human counterattack. What they didn't see were the 47 kinetic launch platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt. Each platform had been disguised to look like a large rock, complete with fake mineral signatures and impact craters. For 3 weeks, they had been accelerating tungsten rods to 90% of light speed. In her command center, Admiral Chen watched the alien fleet approach. Distance to target? 200,000 kilometers in closing, reported Captain Torres. They're moving exactly as Dr. Wu predicted. Sarah opened a channel to all human forces. This is Admiral Chen. Today, humanity sends a message to the galaxy. We are not victims. We are not primitives. We are humans and we bow to no one. All units execute Operation Homecoming. The first salvo came from the asteroid belt. 47 tungsten rods, each weighing 50 kilograms, struck the Council fleet at nearly the speed of light. 3 escort ships simply vanished in brilliant flashes of released energy. The heavy cruiser, Stellar Dominion, took a direct hit to its engine section and began spinning out of control. Karthek stared at his displays in shock. What was that? Where did those projectiles come from? His tactical officer's hands moved frantically over his controls. Unknown, Commander. The impacts came from multiple directions. I'm detecting massive kinetic energy releases, but no weapon signatures. Before Karthek could respond, the second phase of the attack began. 60 human stealth fighters hidden in the shadow of Earth's moon activated their engines and accelerated toward the alien fleet. Their approach was silent and invisible to Council sensors. The human fighters didn't rely on exotic energy weapons or advanced shields. Instead, they carried simple but effective weapons: nuclear missiles with depleted uranium warheads, particle beam cannons powered by fusion reactors, and something the aliens had never encountered before: cyber warfare packages. Dr. Wu had spent months studying the Council's computer systems through intercepted communications. He discovered that alien technology was actually more vulnerable to hacking than human systems. The Council had developed incredibly advanced hardware, but their software security was designed to prevent attacks from other Council species, not from humans. Their mistake, Wu had explained, is assuming that primitive species can't understand advanced technology. But human hackers don't need to understand how something works. They just need to find ways to break it. The first wave of human fighters reached the Council fleet just as Karthek was trying to understand what had hit his ships. The humans launched everything at once: nuclear missiles, cyber warfare viruses, and concentrated particle beam attacks. The cyber attack hit first. Human hackers had created viruses specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in Council computer systems. Within seconds, half the alien ships lost their targeting systems. The heavy cruiser, Righteous Fury, began firing its main guns at empty space as its computers decided that asteroids were enemy ships. Then the nuclear missiles arrived. Council shields were designed to stop energy weapons and conventional explosives. They had never been tested against human nuclear weapons, which released energy in ways that alien technology didn't expect. The escort ship Swift Justice took 3 nuclear hits to its shield generators. The shields flickered and failed, leaving the ship defenseless against the particle beam weapons that followed. Karthek finally managed to restore some order to his formation. All ships' emergency protocols. Unknown enemy forces are attacking from multiple directions. Form defensive positions around the dreadnought. But humanity's real surprise was just beginning. The orbital platforms around Earth, which had looked so primitive and harmless, suddenly revealed their true purpose. They weren't weapons at all. They were giant sensor arrays and communication relays, designed to coordinate attacks across the entire solar system. Enemy fleet has taken defensive formation, reported Captain Torres. All kinetic platforms report ready for second salvo. Sarah smiled coldly. Fire everything. The asteroid belt lit up like a Christmas tree as every hidden launcher fired at once. This time, the tungsten rods were aimed not at the ships themselves, but at the space around them. The Council formation found itself in the middle of a kinetic minefield, with hypersonic projectiles crisscrossing their position from every direction. The dreadnought Inevitable Justice managed to avoid direct hits, but 2 more escort ships were destroyed and another heavy cruiser lost its main weapons. Karthek realized with growing horror that the humans had turned his own tactical advantages against him. How is this possible? He demanded. Their technology is primitive. They shouldn't be able to coordinate attacks across such distances. His communications officer looked up from her station with fear in her eyes. Commander, I'm detecting massive signal traffic throughout the human solar system. They're not using one command center. They're using their entire system as a single weapons platform. This was the truth that the Council had failed to understand. Humans didn't think of warfare the same way aliens did. While Council species built individual ships with powerful weapons, humans had turned their entire solar system into a weapon. Every satellite, every space station, every piece of equipment in Earth's system was connected to the defense network. The asteroid mining facilities weren't just hidden weapons. They were sensor stations that could track enemy movements across millions of kilometers. The orbital platforms weren't just decoys. They were coordination centers that could direct attacks from anywhere in the system. As the Council fleet tried to regroup, they discovered that they were fighting not just 60 human fighters, but an entire solar system that had been turned into a military fortress. The third wave of attacks came from directions that Karthek hadn't even considered. Human ships emerged from the shadows of Jupiter's moons, from the rings of Saturn, and from deep space trajectories that should have been impossible to achieve without faster-than-light travel. How many ships do they have? Karthek asked desperately. I don't know, Commander, his tactical officer replied. They keep appearing from new positions. It's like they're everywhere at once. What Karthek didn't understand was that humans had been building in space for decades. Every research station, every mining facility, every deep space probe had been equipped with basic weapons and communication systems. When the aliens arrived, they weren't facing a single planet's defenses. They were facing the accumulated military production of an entire star system. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Council fleet was in ruins. 5 ships had been completely destroyed. 7 more were heavily damaged and barely able to maintain life support. Only 4 ships, including the badly damaged dreadnought, remained capable of fighting. Karthek stood in his ruined command center, staring at displays that showed the impossible. A primitive species had just defeated a Council fleet using weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate their shields. Commander, his communications officer said quietly, we're receiving a transmission from the human admiral. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen. She looked calm and professional, as if she had just completed a routine training exercise instead of the first victory in an interstellar war. Fleet Commander Karthek, she said politely, this is Admiral Chen of Earth's United Space Command. I hope you understand that this was a defensive action only. We have no desire to continue hostilities if you are willing to withdraw your forces from our solar system. Karthek found his voice. This is impossible. Your species lacks the technology for such coordinated attacks. Sarah smiled. Commander, you've made the same mistake that many of Earth's enemies have made throughout history. You confused our technology level with our capability level. We may not have your advanced ships, but we've had a very long time to learn how to fight. The alien commander looked at his ruined fleet and realized that everything the Council believed about primitive species was wrong. The humans hadn't won through superior technology. They had won through superior strategy, better coordination, and a level of tactical thinking that the Council had never encountered. What do you want? Karthek asked. Nothing that you're not willing to give, Sarah replied. Withdraw your fleet, report to your Council that Earth chooses independence, and we'll consider this matter closed. As the battered Council ships limped away from Earth's solar system, Karthek began composing the most difficult report of his career. He had to explain to the Galactic Council that their first encounter with human. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going for 6 hours. Around the massive circular chamber, representatives from 12 species argued in voices that ranged from whispers to roars. The holographic display in the center showed the devastating remains of Fleet Commander Karthek's expedition. High Counselor Vexnari of the Hegemon called for order. The facts are clear. A single primitive world has destroyed or damaged 11 Council vessels. This cannot be allowed to stand. Ambassador Zethkri stood at his species' speaking platform. His 4 arms gestured angrily as he spoke. I told you they should have been destroyed immediately. Now they think they can fight the entire Council. The question, interrupted Counselor Mordeth of the Vorthak Collective, is how they achieved such results. Our analysis of the battle recording shows impossible coordination across their entire star system. What the Council didn't know was that Dr. Wu's intelligence network was listening to every word. Hidden communication devices planted during months of careful preparation transmitted their discussions directly to Earth. In her command center, Admiral Chen watched the alien debate with grim satisfaction. They're scared, she told her staff. Good. Fear makes people make mistakes. Captain Torres looked up from his monitoring station. Admiral, we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout Council space. It looks like they're assembling a much larger force. Sarah nodded. She had expected this response. How large? Initial estimates suggest over 200 ships from all 12 Council species. This won't be a peacekeeping force. This will be a full invasion fleet. Dr. Wu entered the command center carrying a tablet full of intelligence reports. Sarah, we need to talk about Phase 2. They moved to a secure briefing room where Wu spread out holographic displays showing Council territory. The aliens are making exactly the mistake we hoped they would make. They're treating this like a traditional military campaign. Explain, Wu pointed to the star map. Every Council species is pulling ships from their normal patrol routes to join this invasion fleet. That means their home systems are being left with minimal defenses. More importantly, their supply lines are completely exposed. Sarah studied the display. You're talking about taking the war to them. I'm talking about showing them what human warfare really looks like. They think this is about conquering Earth. We need to make them understand that this is about the survival of the human species. And when humans fight for survival, we don't follow anyone else's rules. Over the next 2 weeks, the Council's invasion fleet grew to massive proportions. Ships arrived from across known space, representing the greatest military force ever assembled by the Galactic Council. The fleet included heavy dreadnoughts, planet-killing siege ships, and support vessels carrying enough firepower to reduce entire worlds to ash. Fleet Admiral Zarthok, a veteran of dozens of colonial pacification campaigns, took command of the invasion force. He had never lost a battle and had little patience for species that refused Council guidance. The humans got lucky once, he told his staff during a strategy meeting. They caught a small peacekeeping force by surprise. This time, we bring enough firepower to sterilize their entire system. But while the Council assembled their fleet, humanity was implementing a strategy that none of the alien species had ever encountered. Captain Maria Santos led the first phase of human offensive operations. Santos commanded a small force of stealth ships that had been launched toward Council space immediately after the first battle. Her mission was not to fight the alien fleet. Instead, she was targeting something much more important: the Council's ability to supply their forces. Remember, Santos told her squadron commanders during their final briefing, We're not trying to win a traditional battle. We're trying to convince 12 different species that fighting humanity is too expensive to continue. The first target was a Vorthak supply convoy carrying ammunition and fuel to the invasion fleet. Santos's ships intercepted the convoy 3 light-years from any inhabited system. The attack lasted only minutes, but its effects were devastating. The humans didn't just destroy the supply ships. They captured them intact along with their crews. More importantly, they left behind evidence that made it look like the attack had been carried out by another council species. Within hours, the Vorthak were accusing the Zilani of sabotaging their supply lines. The Zilani denied involvement, but the evidence was convincing. Suddenly, the unified council fleet was dealing with internal suspicions and accusations. This was psychological warfare on a scale that the aliens had never experienced. Dr. Wu's teams had studied every council species for months, learning their political structures, military traditions, and historical conflicts with each other. The council has been stable for thousands of years, Wu explained to Admiral Chen. But that stability depends on trust between member species. If we can break that trust, the alliance will collapse from within. The second phase of operations began when Commander Zhang Wei's reconnaissance teams reached the outer edges of Council territory. Instead of attacking military targets, they focused on something that would cause much more damage: the Council's economy. Zhang's teams targeted trading posts, mining operations, and communication relays. Each attack was carefully planned to look like the work of pirates or internal conflicts, rather than human military action. Within days, trade routes that had operated safely for centuries became dangerous passages where ships disappeared without explanation. The psychological impact was exactly what the humans had hoped for. Council species began pulling their ships back to protect their own territory. The unified invasion fleet started to fragment as each species demanded that some ships be sent home to guard their important assets. But the most devastating attacks came from Captain Torres, who had been promoted to lead Earth's new cyber warfare division. Torres had learned that Council computer systems were vulnerable to a type of attack that aliens had never considered: social engineering. Human hackers didn't just break into alien computer systems. They studied how different Council species communicated, learned their social customs, and then used that knowledge to manipulate their behavior. It's not about breaking their encryption, Torres explained to his team. It's about convincing their computers to give us access voluntarily. The cyber attacks started small. Financial records were altered to make it look like certain Council species were not paying their fair share of military expenses. Communication logs were modified to suggest that some species were planning to leave the alliance. Trade agreements were subtly changed to create economic disputes between former allies. None of these changes were dramatic enough to be noticed immediately. But over time, they created a pattern of mistrust and suspicion that spread throughout the Council leadership. Meanwhile, Admiral Chen was preparing for the arrival of the invasion fleet. But her preparations were not what the aliens expected. Instead of building more orbital defenses around Earth, she was dispersing humanity's military assets throughout the galaxy. "We're not going to fight them at Earth," she announced during a strategy meeting. "We're going to fight them everywhere at once." Human ships launched months earlier in secret had reached positions throughout Council space. When the invasion fleet finally arrived at Earth's solar system, they found a nasty surprise waiting for them. As Admiral Zarthok's massive fleet approached Earth, his communications officer received urgent messages from across Council territory. Human forces were attacking targets in 12 different star systems simultaneously. "This is impossible," Zarthok muttered as he read the reports. "How can they be attacking our home systems while we're attacking theirs?" What the alien admiral didn't understand was that humans had been thinking about this war very differently than the Council expected. While the aliens focused on building the biggest possible fleet to crush Earth's defenses, humans had built a strategy based on speed, stealth, and psychological pressure. Admiral Chen opened a communication channel to the Council fleet as it approached Earth's orbital defenses. "Admiral Zarthok," she said calmly, "welcome to Earth's solar system. Before you begin your attack, I thought you might want to know about the current status of Council territory." The main screen in Zarthok's command center lit up with real-time footage from across the galaxy. Human forces were destroying infrastructure, capturing ships and generally causing chaos throughout every council member's home territory. As you can see, Chen continued, you have a choice to make. You can attack Earth and win a battle while losing the war. Or you can withdraw your forces and negotiate a peaceful solution to our conflict. Zarthok felt his confidence wavering as he watched his civilization's infrastructure burning on the screen. How many ships do you have? How many worlds are you attacking? Sarah smiled. Admiral, you're still thinking about this war in the wrong way. This isn't about how many ships we have. This is about showing the galaxy that humanity is not a species that can be conquered or controlled. Every day you continue this war, the cost to your people gets higher. For the first time in his career, Admiral Zarthok was facing an enemy that fought without rules, without honor, and without mercy. The emergency council meeting had been moved to a secure facility deep underground on the Hegemon homeworld. For the first time in galactic history, the council chambers were sealed against outside communication. The 12 species that had ruled known space for millennia sat in stunned silence as they watched their civilization crumble on the screens around them. Hi, Counselor. Vexnari's voice was barely a whisper. Status report from all member worlds. The reports came in one by one, each worse than the last. The Vorthak had lost 60% of their automated mining operations. The Zalani communication networks were operating at 20% capacity. The Mordek trade routes had been reduced to local traffic only. In 3 weeks, Counselor Thexara said numbly, a single primitive species has done more damage to our infrastructure than we've suffered in the last 1,000 years combined. Ambassador Zethkri stood slowly. His usual arrogance had been replaced by something none of the other council members had ever seen in him. Fear. The humans have to be stopped. We must use the planet killers. Sterilize their entire system. With what? Snapped Counselor Mordeth. Half our fleet is trapped in the Earth system by those impossible kinetic weapons. The other half is scattered across the galaxy, trying to protect our own worlds from human attacks. The truth was worse than any of them wanted to admit. Humanity had not simply defeated the Council's military forces. They had demonstrated that the entire structure of galactic civilization was built on assumptions that no longer applied. For thousands of years, the Council had maintained peace through superior technology and overwhelming force. When a species refused to join the alliance, they sent a large fleet to demonstrate their power. The target world would surrender rather than face total destruction. But the humans had changed the rules. Instead of fighting for their own world, they had taken the war to the Council's territory. Instead of trying to match alien technology, they had used superior strategy and tactics to turn the Council's own advantages against them. Dr. Wu's intelligence networks, now operating throughout Council space, intercepted the emergency meeting's communications in real time. In her command center on Earth, Admiral Chen watched the alien leaders struggle to understand what had happened to them. They still don't get it, she told Dr. Wu. They think this is about military victory. Wu nodded. They've spent so long being the strongest force in the galaxy that they've forgotten what it means to face an existential threat. For them, war is a tool of diplomacy. For us, it's a matter of species survival. The difference was crucial. Council species fought to maintain their position in an established order. Humans were fighting to survive as a free species. That difference in motivation made human forces willing to take risks and make sacrifices that alien commanders couldn't understand. Captain Santos had just completed the most daring operation of the war. Her stealth ships had penetrated the heavily defended Hegemon system and captured a Council communications hub. But instead of destroying it, they had used it to broadcast a message to every inhabited world in Council space. The message was simple and delivered in every known galactic language. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth's United Space Command. The Galactic Council declared war on humanity. We did not choose this fight, but we will finish it. Any world that wishes to remain neutral in this conflict has only to acknowledge Earth's independence. Any world that continues to support the Council's war effort will be treated as an enemy. The broadcast had an immediate effect throughout Council territory. Dozens of minor worlds that had been forced to join the alliance began declaring neutrality. Several species that had been conquered by the Council centuries earlier saw an opportunity for independence and began their own rebellions. The humans are not just fighting us, Counselor Vexnari realized. They're encouraging every oppressed species in the galaxy to rise up against us. This was exactly what Admiral Chen had hoped would happen. Dr. Wu's intelligence reports had identified dozens of species that resented Council rule but had never dared to rebel. By demonstrating that the Council could be defeated, humanity was inspiring a galaxy-wide revolution. The final phase of the war began when Fleet Admiral Zarthok made a desperate decision. Trapped in Earth's solar system with his massive invasion fleet, he decided to attempt one last attack on the human homeworld itself. "We may not survive this," he told his officers, "but we can at least ensure that the humans pay the price for their defiance." But as the Council fleet approached Earth's inner defenses, they discovered that the humans had one more surprise waiting for them. The planet itself was no longer there. "Admiral," his navigation officer reported in confusion, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from Earth's orbital space, but the planet seems to have moved." What Zarthok was seeing was the result of humanity's most ambitious engineering project. Over the past month, while the galaxy's attention was focused on military battles, human engineers had constructed a massive cloaking field around Earth, using technology reverse-engineered from captured alien ships. The planet was still there, but it was completely invisible to Council sensors. What the aliens were detecting was a carefully constructed holographic projection, showing a heavily fortified world, bristling with weapons. "Admiral." Chen opened a communication channel to the confused alien fleet. "Admiral Zarthok, I believe you're looking for this." The holographic projection vanished, revealing the true Earth underneath. But this wasn't the heavily defended fortress world that the aliens expected. Instead, they saw a peaceful planet with minimal orbital defenses and clear signs of normal civilian activity. "Impossible," Zarthok whispered. "Where are your military installations? Your weapon platforms?" Sarah smiled. "Admiral, you're still thinking about warfare the wrong way. You've been looking for our weapons in the wrong places." As she spoke, space around the Council fleet began to fill with human ships. But these weren't the stealth fighters or military vessels that the aliens had been fighting. They were ordinary civilian spacecraft, cargo haulers, passenger transports, mining ships, and research vessels. Every human ship in the solar system had been equipped with basic weapons and coordinated through Earth's communication network. The aliens found themselves surrounded not by a military fleet, but by an entire civilization that had mobilized for war. "This is what you never understood about humanity," Chen continued. "You think of war as something that soldiers do while civilians watch. But when you threaten our species' survival, every human becomes a soldier." Zarthok looked at his tactical displays in growing horror. His powerful warships were surrounded by thousands of smaller vessels, each one capable of mounting suicide attacks against his formation. Even if he destroyed them all, the cost would cripple his fleet. But the real shock came when Admiral Chen revealed humanity's final card. "Admiral, before you make any decisions about attacking Earth, there's something else you should know. Please observe your tactical displays." New contacts appeared on every Council ship's sensors. Human fleets larger than anything the aliens had seen during the entire war were approaching the home systems of all 12 Council species simultaneously. "These are not the small raiding forces you've been fighting," Chen explained calmly. "These are our main battle fleets. While you've been focused on conquering Earth, we've been preparing to end this war permanently." The displays showed the impossible truth. Humanity had somehow constructed and deployed military forces capable of threatening every Council world at the same time. The species that had been dismissed as primitive had built a war machine that spanned the galaxy. Admiral Zarthok finally understood the trap that humanity had set. The invasion of Earth had not been the main battle of the war. It had been a distraction, designed to keep the Council's attention focused in the wrong direction while human forces positioned themselves for a decisive strike. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Nothing that we haven't wanted from the beginning," Sarah replied. "Recognition of Earth's independence, withdrawal of all Council forces from human space, and a formal treaty acknowledging humanity's right to exist as a free species." "And if we refuse?" Admiral Chen's expression became cold as space itself. "Then tomorrow, every Council homeworld will learn what Earth learned when you first arrived, that there are species in this galaxy that do not accept surrender as an option." The communication channel closed, leaving Admiral Zarthok alone with a decision that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. He could order an attack on Earth and trigger a war that would destroy both species, or he could accept that the age of Council dominance was over. 3 hours later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session once again, but this time, the chamber was filled with a silence that none of them had experienced before. For the first time in their history, the Council had no words. They had encountered a species that could not be conquered, could not be intimidated, and could not be controlled. Worse, they had learned that their own power had always been based on the assumption that no one would be willing to pay the price necessary to challenge them. Humanity had been willing to pay that price. More importantly, they had been smart enough to make the Council pay an even higher price for trying to enslave them.